I stood frozen in the university auditorium as my thesis advisor, Dr. Richardson, held up two identical research papers, my life's work displayed side by side like evidence of my own fraud, while my sister Melody sat in the front row with tears streaming down her face, her voice breaking as she whispered to everyone around her that I had stolen her research, that I had always been jealous of her brilliance, that she never imagined her own sister would stoop so low as to plagiarize her groundbreaking work on neural network applications in medical diagnostics. And I watched in horror as every professor on my committee nodded sympathetically at her performance, their disappointed eyes turning toward me with the kind of disgust reserved for the most despicable academic criminals. Dr. Chen, Dr. Seven. Richardson's voice cut through the murmur of shocked whispers that filled the auditorium. I'm afraid we have no choice but to recommend immediate termination of Miss Sarah Chen's doctoral program, pending a full investigation into these serious allegations of academic misconduct. The words hit me like physical blows, each syllable destroying another piece of the future I had worked so desperately to build, and I felt my legs give out as I realized that everything I had sacrificed for, every late night in the lab, every social event missed, every relationship neglected, had been for nothing because my own sister had orchestrated my complete destruction with the same methodical precision she had used to steal my work for years. The memories crashed over me like a tsunami of rage and grief, how in high school Melody had submitted my essay on molecular biology to the science fair and won first place while I received a 0 for plagiarism. How the biology teacher, Mrs. Henderson, had refused to believe that the younger sister could have stolen from the older one. How Mother had insisted that I must have copied from Melody's notes and that I should be grateful she was willing to share her brilliance with me. How I had learned to hide my work and keep my ideas secret, but somehow, Melody always managed to find them, always managed to present them as her own just days or weeks before I could submit them myself, always with that innocent smile and wide-eyed confusion when I accused her of theft. In undergraduate school, she had copied my research proposal for the competitive summer fellowship program at Johns Hopkins, photographing my drafts when I left my laptop open during a family dinner. And when she was selected for the program, while I was rejected for lack of originality, she had hugged me with fake sympathy and suggested that perhaps I should try harder to come up with fresh ideas instead of rehashing old concepts. Her voice dripping with false concern as she promised to put in a good word for me with the program director, knowing full well that she had destroyed my chances by submitting my own work under her name just 3 days before my deadline. She had always been 2 years behind me in school, always struggling with the advanced concepts that came naturally to me, always begging for help with her homework and research projects, but somehow she managed to publish similar work just months before my submissions, always with the same excuse that great minds think alike, always with Mother's support that we should share our talents as sisters, that family loyalty was more important than individual recognition, that I was being selfish and petty by refusing to help my younger sister succeed in her academic pursuits. During the disciplinary hearing that followed my public humiliation, I finally understood the truth that had been staring me in the face for years. The devastating reality that Melody had never forgiven me for being accepted into MIT while she had to settle for the state university, had never forgiven me for graduating summa cum laude while she barely scraped by with a B average, had never forgiven me for being offered the prestigious PhD position at Stanford while she had to beg for admission to a third-tier program, so she had systematically destroyed my academic career piece by piece, using our mother's connections in the university administration and her own manipulative charm to convince professors and administrators that I was the copycat sister riding on her coattails, that I had always been jealous of her natural brilliance and had resorted to theft to compensate for my own intellectual inadequacies. The evidence she presented was overwhelming and perfectly crafted, months of carefully documented conversations where she had tried to help me with my research, email exchanges where she had generously shared her ideas with me, witness statements from classmates who had seen us studying together and assumed I was copying from her notes, and most damning of all, the timestamps on her computer files that showed she had been working on similar algorithms weeks before I had even begun my research, timestamps that I now realized had been fabricated with the same meticulous attention to detail that characterized all of her schemes. The committee's decision was swift and brutal. My PhD was revoked before I had even officially received it. My research was confiscated and sealed pending further investigation. My future in academia was destroyed with a permanent notation on my transcript that would prevent me from ever being accepted into another graduate program, and I was banned from submitting work to any major journal or conference. While Melody was praised for her courage in exposing academic fraud and offered a prestigious postdoc position at Harvard Medical School that should have been mine, my life's work on revolutionary cancer treatment algorithms now published under her name in Nature Medicine, making her the youngest recipient of the Breakthrough Prize in Life Sciences at 26. The financial consequences were equally devastating. My research assistantship was terminated immediately, my student loans came due without the deferment I had counted on, and the legal fees for challenging the committee's decision drained what little savings I had managed to accumulate during my years of poverty-level graduate student stipends, while Melody moved into a luxury apartment in Cambridge and began appearing on magazine covers as the brilliant young scientist who was revolutionizing cancer treatment with her groundbreaking artificial intelligence algorithms that I had developed during countless sleepless nights in the lab, working through problems that she had never even understood well enough to explain coherently. Mother's reaction was perhaps the most painful betrayal of all, her immediate assumption that I must have done something wrong, that her precious Melody would never lie or cheat, that I had always been the jealous older sister who couldn't accept that her baby had surpassed her in every way, and when I showed her the evidence of Melody's systematic theft, the drafts and notes and timestamps that proved the algorithms were my original work, she simply shook her head with disappointment and suggested that perhaps I should be grateful that my ideas were being used to help cancer patients, that family loyalty should matter more than individual recognition, that I was being selfish and vindictive by trying to destroy Melody's career out of spite. My boyfriend Marcus, who had supported me through the grueling years of graduate school and had been planning to propose after my thesis defense, couldn't handle the scandal and the social ostracism that came with being associated with an accused plagiarist, and he ended our 3-year relationship with a painfully awkward conversation where he explained that he couldn't risk his own career prospects by being connected to someone with such a damaged reputation, that he had to think about his future and his family's expectations, that maybe we could reconnect someday when all of this had blown over, knowing full well that academic fraud allegations never truly blow over, that they follow you forever like a scarlet letter that brands you as untrustworthy and dishonest. The physical and mental toll was unbearable. Months of stress and sleepless nights had left me gaunt and hollow-eyed, my hair falling out in clumps from the constant anxiety, my hands shaking uncontrollably whenever I tried to work on anything resembling research. My mind racing with obsessive thoughts about how I could have prevented this disaster, how I could have protected my work better, how I could have seen through Melody's manipulation before it was too late, while depression settled over me like a heavy blanket that made it impossible to get out of bed most days. Impossible to imagine a future where I could ever trust anyone again, impossible to believe that justice would ever be served. The isolation was complete and suffocating. My former classmates and colleagues avoided me as if academic fraud might be contagious. My professors pretended not to see me when I passed them in the hallways. My research collaborators quietly removed my name from papers we had worked on together, and I found myself completely alone in a world that had once celebrated my potential and now saw me as nothing more than a cautionary tale about the dangers of academic dishonesty, a pathetic figure who had tried to steal credit for her sister's brilliant work and had been rightfully exposed and punished. 6 months later, I was found dead in my studio apartment, surrounded by empty pill bottles and draft letters explaining how I couldn't live with the shame anymore, how I couldn't bear to see my life's work saving lives under someone else's name, how I had lost everything that mattered to me because I had been foolish enough to trust my own sister with my research drafts, how the world would be better off without a fraud like me taking up space, how I hoped that someday people would understand that I had never meant to hurt anyone, that I had only wanted to help cancer patients with my algorithms, that I had loved my sister despite everything she had done to destroy me, and then I opened my eyes and realized I was sitting in the university library, my laptop open to the same neural network code I had been working on 3 years ago, the date on my phone showing September 15th, 2021, the exact day I had first shown Melody my breakthrough algorithm that would later destroy my life. My heart pounded as I stared at the screen, every detail of the next 3 years flashing through my mind like a movie played at triple speed. The devastating clarity of hindsight showing me exactly how Melody had orchestrated my downfall, how she had used my own trust and family loyalty against me, how she had played the role of the supportive younger sister while systematically documenting everything I shared with her, building the evidence that would eventually frame me as the plagiarist. And I knew that in exactly 37 minutes, she would walk into this library with her usual innocent smile and ask to see what I was working on, that she would photograph my code while pretending to take a selfie with me, that she would claim she was just curious about her brilliant older sister's research, and that in 6 months she would submit a nearly identical proposal to the same grant committee I was applying to, beating my submission by just 2 weeks and beginning the chain of events that would lead to my complete destruction. The knowledge was overwhelming and terrifying, like having access to a crystal ball that showed only tragedy and betrayal, but it was also intoxicating in its completeness. The way every conversation and interaction now made perfect sense. The way I could finally see through Melody's manipulation and understand exactly how she had managed to fool everyone, including me. How she had used her tears and her apparent vulnerability to make herself seem like the victim while painting me as the jealous, vindictive older sister who couldn't accept her success. And I realized that this impossible second chance was my opportunity to turn the tables, to use her own methods against her, to set the trap that would destroy her career the same way she had destroyed mine. I quickly opened my email and found the message from Dr. Richardson that I remembered receiving at exactly 2:47 p.m., asking me to meet him tomorrow to discuss my preliminary research findings. The same meeting where I had been so excited to share my breakthrough that I had called Melody immediately afterward to tell her about the revolutionary implications of my neural network algorithms, never imagining that she was recording our conversation and documenting every detail of my work, building the case that would eventually prove her prior ownership of the ideas. And I knew that if I was right about this impossible second chance, Melody would text me in exactly 12 minutes asking if I wanted to grab coffee and study together, using the same casual tone that had fooled me before but now seemed transparently manipulative and calculated. The waiting was excruciating, each minute feeling like an hour as I watched the clock and wondered if I had somehow imagined this supernatural return to the past, if I was losing my mind from the stress and trauma of my sister's betrayal, if this was some kind of elaborate hallucination brought on by the medication I had been taking for depression and anxiety. But when my phone buzzed with Melody's text at exactly 2:59 p.m., the familiar words appearing on my screen like a script I had memorized, I felt a cold smile cross my face as I realized that this was real, that I had somehow been given the chance to rewrite history, to prevent my own destruction and ensure that justice would finally be served. "Hey sis, wanna grab coffee and study together? I could use some help with my advanced algorithms class and I'd love to see what you're working on for Dr. Richardson. Maybe we can bounce ideas off each other like we used to. Tower A." The message was exactly what I remembered, down to the cheerful emoji and the carefully crafted tone of sisterly affection. But now I could see the manipulation in every word, the way she had framed her request as mutual help while planning to steal everything I showed her, the way she had used our shared history and family bond to lower my defenses, the way she had made me feel guilty for being secretive about my research by implying that I was being unnecessarily competitive with my own sister, and I knew that my response would determine whether I repeated the same mistakes or finally broke free from the cycle of betrayal that had defined our relationship. Instead of the eager agreement I had sent in my previous life, I typed back a response that would have been impossible before, when I still believed in family loyalty and sisterly love, when I still thought that sharing my work with Melody was an act of generosity rather than self-destruction. "Sorry, I'm too busy with my confidential research to study today. Maybe another time when I'm not working on such sensitive material. Good luck with your algorithms class, though." The message was polite but firm, establishing boundaries that I had never maintained before, and I could almost feel Melody's confusion and frustration through the screen as she read my uncharacteristic refusal, knowing that this simple rejection would throw off her entire timeline and force her to find another way to access my work, which would give me the perfect opportunity to set the trap that would destroy her academic career the same way she had destroyed mine, using her own greed and sense of entitlement against her. making her so desperate for my research that she would make the fatal mistake of stealing obviously flawed work that would expose her as a fraud. The next few hours passed in a blur of strategic planning and cold calculation, my mind racing through the possibilities and contingencies. The perfect revenge taking shape like a beautiful and terrible algorithm designed to solve the problem of my sister's betrayal, and I realized that I had been given more than just a second chance. I had been given the knowledge and the motivation to become the kind of strategic thinker that I had never been before, the kind of person who could match Melody's manipulation with superior planning and execution, the kind of sister who would finally make her pay for everything she had stolen from me. The next few weeks were a delicate dance of seeming normal while completely changing my behavior, maintaining the facade of the trusting older sister she expected me to be, while secretly documenting every interaction and building the evidence that would eventually destroy her. And I stopped sharing my research progress with anyone, started working in private study rooms instead of the common areas where she could easily observe my work, and began keeping detailed records of every conversation and text message, every attempt she made to access my research, every lie she told, and every manipulation she attempted, all while watching her growing frustration at being cut off from her usual source of academic material. I could see the desperation in her eyes during family dinners when she would casually ask about my research progress, and I would deflect with vague responses about preliminary data collection, the way she would linger near my laptop when I was working in the house, the increasing frequency of her accidental visits to my study room. And I knew that she was becoming more and more desperate to access my work, more willing to take risks and make mistakes, more likely to fall for the trap that I was carefully constructing for her, and I felt a cold satisfaction at finally having the upper hand in our relationship, finally being the one who controlled the flow of information and held all the cards. The fake research paper took weeks to craft, every detail carefully calculated to seem groundbreaking while containing subtle flaws that would be exposed under peer review, sophisticated enough to pass initial scrutiny but built on falsified data that would be discovered during replication attempts, innovative enough to attract attention from prestigious journals, but embedded with unique phrasing and specific citations that would make it impossible for anyone to claim they had developed the ideas independently, and most importantly, designed to be irresistible to someone like Melody, who had built her entire academic career on stealing other people's work and presenting it as her own original research. I based the fake paper on real neural network principles that I knew Melody had studied but never fully understood, creating algorithms that looked mathematically sound but contained hidden errors that would only become apparent when someone tried to implement them in practice. And I included references to obscure papers that I knew she had never read, citations that would expose her lack of deep understanding if anyone questioned her about the theoretical foundations of her work, statistical analyses that appeared rigorous but were based on fabricated datasets that could never be replicated, and breakthrough claims that were just plausible enough to fool initial reviewers but would collapse under the scrutiny of expert analysis. While I was constructing this elaborate trap, I also began work on my real research project, the genuine breakthrough in cancer treatment algorithms that would eventually secure my academic future, and I reached out to Dr. James Chen, the brilliant young professor who had been overlooked for tenure in my previous life but whose innovative teaching methods and genuine care for students had always impressed me, and I began collaborating with him on developing truly revolutionary approaches to medical AI that would save lives and advance the field, building the kind of mentor-student relationship that Melody had always sabotaged through her manipulation and lies, finally free to pursue academic excellence without the constant threat of betrayal. Dr. Chen was everything that Dr. Richardson had never been, patient and encouraging rather than dismissive, interested in developing my ideas rather than simply taking credit for them, and he helped me understand that the academic world was not the cutthroat environment I had always believed it to be, that collaboration and mutual support were possible when you worked with people who had integrity and genuine passion for their research, and I began to see what my career could have been if I had never trusted Melody with my work, if I had never allowed her to poison my relationships with professors and colleagues, if I had never believed that family loyalty required me to sacrifice my own success for her advancement. The opportunity to spring my trap came during Thanksgiving dinner, when the entire family was gathered around the table and Melody was feeling particularly confident about her academic prospects. bragging about her latest research project and hinting that she was on the verge of a major breakthrough that would establish her as a leading researcher in the field. And I knew that this was the perfect moment to dangle the bait, to make the plagiarism opportunity so irresistible that she would abandon all caution and steal my fake research with the same greedy enthusiasm she had shown for my real work in the past. I excused myself from the table with a comment about checking my email for updates from Dr. Chen about our latest collaboration, leaving my laptop open on the kitchen counter with the fake research paper displayed prominently on the screen, and I watched from the doorway as Melody approached with practiced casualness, her eyes lighting up with recognition and greed as she saw what she thought was another brilliant breakthrough from her accomplished older sister, and I held my breath as she pulled out her phone and began photographing every page with the same efficient technique she had used to steal my work for years, her movements quick and confident, completely unaware that she was sealing her own fate. The next few months passed with agonizing slowness as I waited for Melody to take the bait, watching her behavior for signs that she was preparing to submit my fake research, noting the increased time she spent in her room working on what she claimed was her own original project, the way she deflected questions about her research progress with the same vague responses I had once used, the growing excitement in her voice when she talked about her upcoming publications and conference presentations, and I knew that she was falling into the trap exactly as I had planned, that her greed and arrogance were leading her toward the same kind of public humiliation she had orchestrated for me. 6 months later, I watched with carefully concealed satisfaction as Melody submitted my fake research paper to the International Journal of Advanced Medical Technology, her confidence evident in every gesture as she uploaded the files and completed the submission process, her triumph seeming complete when she received the initial review comments that were overwhelmingly positive, praising her innovative approach and groundbreaking methodology, and she was invited to present her findings at the prestigious Global Healthcare Innovation Summit in Geneva, the same conference where I had dreamed of presenting my real work before she had destroyed my career. I made sure to attend the conference, officially as Dr. Chen's research assistant, but secretly to witness the moment when my trap would finally spring, when Melody would face the kind of public humiliation she had inflicted on me, when her lies and theft would be exposed before an audience of the world's leading medical researchers, and I felt a dark anticipation as I watched her prepare for her presentation, practicing her speech with the same confident smile she had worn when testifying against me at my disciplinary hearing, completely unaware that she was about to destroy her own career with the same methodical precision she had used to destroy mine. The conference presentation was everything I had hoped for and more, a masterpiece of poetic justice that unfolded with perfect dramatic timing, and Melody stood before an audience of the world's most respected medical researchers, her PowerPoint slides displaying my deliberately flawed data with the same confident smile she had worn when stealing my real work, her voice clear and steady as she explained the revolutionary implications of her breakthrough algorithms, and I watched from the back of the auditorium as she basked in the initial applause and approving nods, completely unaware that her triumph was about to become her complete downfall. The questions began innocuously enough, standard inquiries about methodology and statistical significance that Melody handled with practiced ease, but when Dr. Elizabeth Hoffman from the German Medical Research Institute asked about the specific mathematical derivations underlying the neural network architecture displayed in slide 17, Melody's face went blank in a way that was instantly recognizable to anyone who had ever watched a student realize they were about to be exposed for not understanding the material they were presenting, and I felt a surge of vindictive satisfaction as I watched her struggle to answer a question about research she had never actually conducted, algorithms she had never truly understood, mathematics she had never derived herself. Within minutes, the entire presentation collapsed like a house of cards as expert after expert pointed out inconsistencies and impossibilities in the data that any genuine researcher would have caught immediately. Statistical errors that revealed the underlying datasets were fabricated, computational claims that violated basic principles of information theory, and experimental results that could never be replicated using the methods described in the paper, and I watched with cold satisfaction as Melody's confident facade crumbled, her voice becoming shaky and defensive as she tried to deflect the increasingly pointed questions, her face flushing with embarrassment and panic as she realized that her theft had been exposed before an international audience of her peers. The investigation that followed was swift and merciless, conducted with the same thoroughness that had once been applied to my own case, and the International Journal of Advanced Medical Technology retracted Melody's paper within a week, issuing a public statement about the fabricated data and plagiarized content, while the university launched a formal inquiry into academic misconduct that would examine every paper she had ever submitted, every grant she had ever received, every claim she had ever made about her research accomplishments. And I knew that the unique citation patterns and phrasing that I had embedded in the fake research would lead investigators directly to my original work, which I had carefully documented and time-stamped months before her submission, making it impossible for her to claim that she had developed the ideas independently. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Digital forensics analysis revealed that she had accessed my files and photographed my research without permission. Timeline reconstruction showed that her sudden burst of productivity had coincided exactly with her theft of my work, and witness testimony from family members confirmed that she had been present when I was working on the algorithms, giving her the opportunity to steal my research and submit it as her own. And I watched with grim satisfaction as the same academic machinery that had once destroyed my career now turned its attention to dismantling hers, stripping away her degrees and publications and professional reputation with the same methodical efficiency she had once used against me. When Mother was confronted with the evidence of Melody's plagiarism, her reaction was exactly what I had expected: a desperate attempt to protect her precious daughter that only served to expose her own complicity in the systematic theft that had defined our family dynamic for years. And she tried to blame me for setting up Melody, accused me of being jealous and vindictive, and demanded that I help cover up the scandal to protect our family's reputation. But this time, I had documented every conversation and interaction, including her previous encouragement of Melody's theft, her dismissal of my concerns about academic integrity, her consistent favoritism that had enabled my sister's criminal behavior, and I watched with cold satisfaction as she realized that her golden child had destroyed not just her own career but the entire family's standing in the academic community. The financial consequences for Melody were devastating. Her research grants were terminated immediately, her salary was suspended pending the outcome of the investigation, and she faced potential criminal charges for fraud and theft of intellectual property, while I continued my work with Dr. Chen on genuine breakthrough research that would actually help cancer patients, algorithms that I had developed through months of careful experimentation and rigorous analysis, work that would stand up to the most intensive peer review because it was based on real data and sound mathematical principles, and I felt a deep satisfaction at finally being able to pursue my true calling without the constant threat of betrayal and theft. While Melody faced expulsion from her graduate program and a permanent ban from academic publishing, her name added to the databases that universities use to screen applicants for previous misconduct, her research assistantship terminated and her thesis advisor refusing to write letters of recommendation for any future positions, I defended my real PhD thesis on revolutionary cancer treatment algorithms to a standing ovation from a committee that included Dr. Chen and several other professors who had come to respect my genuine brilliance and dedication to medical research, my work representing truly groundbreaking advances in artificial intelligence applications that would save thousands of lives by enabling earlier detection and more precise treatment of various cancer types. And I accepted a prestigious postdoc position at MIT, where I would continue developing treatments that would change the world, finally free from the shadow of my sister's betrayal and able to pursue my passion for medical research without fear of theft or manipulation. The research celebration party was held in the same university auditorium where I had once faced public humiliation, but this time the atmosphere was one of genuine celebration and academic achievement. Colleagues and professors congratulating me on work that everyone knew was authentically mine, developed through years of careful study and innovative thinking. And it was there that I finally allowed myself to see David Park, the brilliant computer science PhD who had been quietly supporting my work for years, always ready with technical help and encouragement, but never pushing for more than friendship, never trying to take credit for my ideas or manipulate me for his own advancement. And when he congratulated me on my success with the same genuine smile he had worn since our undergraduate days, I realized that while I had been chasing false dreams of sisterly loyalty and family acceptance, true love had been waiting patiently for me to recognize its worth. David had been there through everything, offering emotional support during my darkest moments, helping me debug code when I was too exhausted to think clearly, celebrating my small victories with the same enthusiasm he showed for major breakthroughs, and I understood that his feelings for me had always been genuine and unselfish, based on respect for my mind and admiration for my character, rather than any desire to benefit from my success, and I felt a warmth spreading through my chest as I realized that this was what real love looked like: patient and supportive and completely without agenda, the kind of partnership that would enhance both our careers rather than destroying one for the benefit of the other. Our relationship developed naturally over the following months, built on shared intellectual interests and genuine compatibility. Long conversations about research methodology and ethical implications of artificial intelligence, quiet evenings working side by side on our respective projects, and I learned what it felt like to trust someone completely with my work and my feelings, to know that my ideas were safe and that my vulnerabilities would never be used against me, and I understood that this was the kind of relationship I had always deserved, the kind of love that builds people up rather than tearing them down, the kind of partnership that creates something beautiful and lasting rather than leaving destruction in its wake. The last I heard about Melody, she had been forced to leave academia entirely after her expulsion and the criminal charges for research fraud, her dreams of scientific fame permanently destroyed by her own greed and inability to create original work, and she was working as a research assistant at a small pharmaceutical company, performing routine data entry and basic analysis under strict supervision. Her salary, a fraction of what she had expected to earn with her stolen PhD, her reputation so damaged that she would never be trusted with important research again, while Mother had retreated to the family estate in shame, her social connections severed, and her reputation in academic circles permanently tainted by her complicity in the fraud scandal. No longer welcome at the university functions and professional gatherings that had once been the center of her social life. I felt no satisfaction in their misery, only a sense of justice finally being served, the natural consequences of choices they had made and actions they had taken, and I focused my energy on the future rather than dwelling on the past, on the life I was building with David and the research that would help countless patients, on the genuine relationships I had formed with colleagues who respected my work and valued my contributions. And I understood that the best revenge was not causing pain to others, but living well and finding happiness with people who truly deserved my trust and affection. 2 years later, I stood in the same university chapel where I had once imagined a future destroyed by betrayal. But this time, I was wearing my grandmother's pearl necklace and carrying white roses as I walked toward David, who waited at the altar with tears of joy in his eyes. Our wedding attended by colleagues and friends who celebrated not just our love but our shared commitment to using science to heal the world, to conducting research with integrity and compassion, to building a life based on honesty and mutual respect, rather than manipulation and betrayal. And I knew that sometimes the greatest revenge is simply living well and finding happiness with people who truly deserve your trust. Dr. Chen served as David's best man, and several of my former professors attended the ceremony, their presence a testament to the respect I had earned through years of honest work and genuine achievement. And as I exchanged vows with the man who had supported me through my darkest moments and celebrated my greatest triumphs, I felt a profound sense of peace and gratitude for the second chance I had been given, the opportunity to rewrite my story and create a future worth living, and I knew that my real research would continue to save lives and advance medical science, that my love for David would grow stronger with each passing year, and that I had finally escaped the cycle of betrayal and manipulation that had once defined my family relationships. The reception was filled with laughter and genuine warmth, conversations about exciting research projects and promising new directions in medical AI, and I looked around at the faces of people who had become my chosen family, colleagues who had supported my work and friends who had celebrated my success, and I realized that I had found something that Melody had never understood and never would understand: the deep satisfaction that comes from earning recognition through honest work, from building relationships based on mutual respect and genuine affection, from knowing that your achievements are truly your own and that the people who love you do so because of who you are, rather than what they can gain from you. As David and I danced to our favorite song, surrounded by friends and colleagues who had become our extended family, I thought about the young woman I had been 3 years ago, so desperate for approval and family acceptance that I had been willing to sacrifice everything for the illusion of sisterly love, and I felt grateful for the hard-won wisdom that had taught me the difference between genuine relationships and manipulative ones, between true love and selfish exploitation, between the kind of success that lifts everyone up and the kind that requires tearing others down. And I knew that the life I was building with David would be everything I had ever dreamed of and more. A partnership based on honesty and trust, a career dedicated to helping others, and a future filled with genuine happiness and lasting love. The cancer treatment algorithms I had developed continued to save lives around the world, my research cited in hundreds of papers and implemented in hospitals across multiple continents, and I felt a deep satisfaction knowing that my work was making a real difference in the lives of patients and their families, that the algorithms I had created through years of careful study and innovative thinking were enabling earlier detection and more effective treatment of diseases that had once seemed hopeless. And I understood that this was the legacy I wanted to leave, not just scientific achievement, but genuine contribution to human welfare, work that would outlast any personal recognition and continue helping people long after I was gone. David and I established a research foundation dedicated to developing AI applications for medical diagnosis and treatment, bringing together the brightest minds in computer science and medicine to work on problems that could transform healthcare, and I knew that this was what I had always been meant to do, to use my talents and knowledge in service of something greater than myself, to build something beautiful and lasting that would honor the second chance I had been given and ensure that my sister's betrayal would never be anything more than a distant memory, a painful lesson that had ultimately led me to the life I was always meant to live.